The day my daughter looked me in the eyes and asked if I was hiding something dirty, something shameful, I felt my heart break in a way I didn't know was still possible at 67. Money had been disappearing from my account. I had been slipping out of the house at odd hours. I stopped answering their questions. And to them, it all pointed to one thing: that I had become someone they no longer recognized. But what they didn't know was that every dollar I spent, every lie I told, every silence I kept was never about hiding something bad. It was about saving someone, even if it meant losing my own family. If you've ever been misunderstood by the people you love the most, I want you to stay with me on this. And before we go further, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Don't forget to like and subscribe if stories like this speak to you, and maybe share in the comments. Have you ever had to keep a painful secret for someone you love? I've always been the kind of woman who believes that routine is a form of peace. Every morning, I woke up at 6:30, made my coffee the same way, 2 sugars, a splash of cream, and sat by the kitchen window in my small house in Columbus, Ohio. The same house my late husband Richard and I had bought over 40 years ago. Back then, it was full of noise, kids running doors, slamming laughter echoing down the hallway. Now it was quiet. Not lonely, just quiet. At least, that's what I told myself. My son Daniel lived about 20 minutes away with his wife Lisa. He worked in finance, always busy, always calculating something. Even when he smiled, it felt like he was measuring the moment. Lisa was sharp, observant, the kind of woman who noticed things most people didn't. I liked her truly, but sometimes I felt like she was always studying me, like I was a puzzle she hadn't quite solved yet. My daughter Emily was different, softer, emotional. She lived closer, just 10 minutes away, and she still called me almost every day. At least she used to. Things had started to change about 3 months ago. It was subtle at first. I remember the first time Daniel asked me about money. We were sitting at my dining table. I had just served him and Lisa my homemade chicken pot pie, his favorite since he was a boy. He barely touched it. "Mom," he said, setting his fork down, "have you made any large withdrawals recently?" The question caught me off guard, but I smiled, trying to keep things light. "Well, I suppose that depends on what you consider large." Lisa glanced at him, then back at me. There were a few transactions that looked unusual. Unusual. That word lingered in the air longer than it should have. "I'm fine," I said gently. "I know how to manage my own money." Daniel leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "We're not saying you don't. We're just concerned." Concerned. It was such a polite word for suspicion. "I appreciate that," I replied. "But there's nothing to worry about. That should have been the end of it." But it wasn't. After that night, I started noticing little things. Emily began asking more questions during our phone calls. "Mom, are you okay? You sound tired." "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just didn't sleep well. Are you stressed about something?" "No, honey, just life." I could hear the hesitation in her voice, the way she paused before saying goodbye, the way she didn't quite believe me anymore. And then there were the visits. Daniel started dropping by without calling first. At first, I thought it was sweet. He'd knock on the door holding a bag of groceries or a cup of coffee. But his eyes, they weren't relaxed. They moved around the house, scanning, noticing. One afternoon, I caught him staring at my kitchen counter where I had left an envelope. It was just a plain white envelope, no return address, no label. But it was enough. "What's that?" One afternoon, I caught him staring at my kitchen counter where I had left an envelope. It was just a plain white envelope. No return address, no label. But it was enough. "What's that?" he asked. "Just some paperwork," I said, quickly moving it aside. "What kind of paperwork?" I smiled again. "The boring kind." He didn't smile back. That was when I knew. They were watching me now. And the truth was, they weren't wrong to be suspicious. Because I had changed. I started keeping my phone with me at all times, even when I went to the bathroom. I lowered my voice when I answered calls. Sometimes I stepped outside just to talk. I began going out more often. "Where are you headed, Mom?" Emily would ask if she happened to stop by. "Oh, just running errands?" "What kind of errands?" "The usual ones." The truth was, I had always been a terrible liar. But desperation, it teaches you. I hated lying to my children. Every small lie felt like a crack forming in something that had taken decades to build. But I didn't have a choice. Not if I wanted to protect what mattered. A few weeks later, things escalated. Lisa was the one who found it. She had come over one afternoon while I was out. Daniel had a spare key, and apparently that meant she did too now. When I got home, she was sitting at my kitchen table, waiting. In front of her was my bank statement. My heart dropped, but I kept my face calm. "Lisa," I said, setting my purse down slowly. "You could have called." She didn't respond right away. She just tapped the paper in front of her. "Do you want to explain this?" I walked closer even though I already knew what she was looking at. The withdrawals, the transfers, the pattern. "It's nothing you need to worry about," I said quietly. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Stephanie, this is a lot of money." "I know, and you've been withdrawing cash almost every week. I'm aware." "Then help me understand." Her tone wasn't rude, it was controlled, careful. That made it worse. I pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "I appreciate your concern," I said, "but I'm handling it." She studied my face, searching for something fear, maybe, or guilt. "Are you being scammed?" she asked. "No. Are you in debt?" "No." "Then what is it?" I hesitated. Just for a second, but that second was enough. Because in that moment, she decided. I could see it in her eyes. She didn't believe me. "I think we need to tell Daniel," she said. My chest tightened. "That's not necessary." "It is, if you won't be honest with me." "I am being honest." "No, you're not." Her voice was still calm, but there was something firm underneath it now. Something final. "I'm going to call him." I reached out instinctively. "Lisa, please." But she had already picked up her phone. And just like that, everything I had been trying to hold together, quietly, started to unravel. That night, Daniel showed up within 30 minutes. Emily came not long after. The three of them stood in my living room like I was a stranger. Like I was someone they had to figure out, or worse, someone they had to protect themselves from. And for the first time in my life, my own children didn't look at me with trust. They looked at me with doubt. And I realized something in that moment that hurt more than anything else. It wasn't just that they didn't understand me. It was that they were already preparing to believe the worst. The next few days felt like walking through a house that no longer belonged to me. Nothing had changed physically. The same furniture, the same photographs on the walls, the same quiet ticking of the clock in the hallway. But the air was different. Heavier, suspicious. I could feel it even when I was alone. Daniel started calling more often, but his tone had changed. It was no longer casual, no longer warm. Every question carried weight behind it. "Did you go out today?" "Yes." "Where?" "Just running errands." "What kind of errands, Mom?" I would pause, just long enough for him to notice. "The usual ones, Daniel." There would be silence on the other end. Not comfortable silence, the kind that makes your chest tighten. Okay, he'd say eventually. Just checking. Just checking. But he wasn't checking. He was tracking. Emily was worse in a different way. She didn't interrogate me the way Daniel did. Instead, she watched me like she was waiting for me to break. One afternoon, she showed up unannounced while I was in the middle of preparing to leave. I had my purse on my shoulder, my keys in my hand, and I must have looked startled when I opened the door. "Oh, Emily," I said, forcing a smile. "I didn't know you were coming." She stepped inside slowly, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "You're going somewhere." It wasn't a question, just out for a bit. "Where?" There it was again, that question. That simple, innocent question that had turned into something sharp. "I told you, sweetheart. Just errands." She crossed her arms. "You've been running a lot of errands lately." I let out a small breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Since when did I need to report my schedule?" Her face softened for a moment, but only for a moment. "Since you started acting like this. I looked at her, really looked at her. This was my little girl, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the one who used to cry over broken toys and ask me to fix everything. And now she was looking at me like I was the problem. "I'm still your mother," I said quietly. "I know," she replied, "but you're not acting like yourself." Her words hit harder than she probably realized. Because she was right. I wasn't acting like myself. I was hiding things, lying, sneaking out, avoiding conversations. Everything I had taught my children not to do. And yet, here I was. "Emily," I said gently, "there are some things that are complicated." "Then explain them to me." "I can't." "Why not?" I hesitated again. That same dangerous hesitation. "Because it's not just about me." Her brows furrowed. "What does that even mean?" "It means—" I stopped myself. I couldn't say more. "Not yet. Not like this." She took a step back, her expression shifting from confusion to frustration. "You see," she said, "this is exactly what I'm talking about. You keep saying things that don't make sense, and then you just shut down." "I'm not shutting down." "Yes, you are." Her voice rose slightly. "You're pushing us away." I felt something twist inside my chest. "That's not what I'm doing." "Then what are you doing, Mom?" The question hung between us. Heavy, demanding, unavoidable. And still, I couldn't answer it, because the truth would open a door I wasn't ready for them to walk through. "I need to go," I said, finally gripping my keys a little tighter. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You're leaving right now?" "In the middle of this conversation. I'll call you later." "No, you won't," she said flatly. "You never do." That hurt, because it was true. "I'm sorry," I whispered. But sorry wasn't enough anymore. It hadn't been enough for a while. I walked past her, feeling her stare burning into my back. And even as I stepped outside, even as I closed the door behind me, I could feel it. The distance growing, the trust breaking, the bond weakening, all because of something I refused to explain. Later that evening, things took another turn. Daniel called again, but this time he wasn't alone. Lisa was on the line too. "Mom?" Daniel said, his voice firm. "We need to talk." I sat down slowly at my kitchen table. "I am listening." "We went through your recent transactions again," Lisa said. "Of course they did." And I asked. "There's a pattern," she continued. "You're withdrawing cash every Friday, almost the same amount each time." I stayed silent. "You're also making transfers," Daniel added. to an account we don't recognize. Still, silence. Mom, he said more sharply now, this is serious. I know. Then why won't you explain it? Because I couldn't. Because explaining it would expose something that wasn't mine to expose. Because the truth wasn't just mine to tell. I'm handling it, I repeated. That's not good enough anymore, Lisa said. Her tone had changed. No longer calm. Now it carried judgment. Do you have any idea what this looks like? She continued. You're taking out large amounts of money, hiding it, refusing to explain. I'm not hiding anything, I cut in, even though I knew how that sounded. Then show us, Daniel said immediately. The words came out like a challenge. Show us where the money is going. I closed my eyes for a second. Just 1 second. But it was enough to feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. I can't. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. You can't or you won't? Lisa asked. I can't, I repeated. Daniel exhaled sharply. This is unbelievable. I know it seems that way. No, Mom, he interrupted. It doesn't just seem that way. It is that way. His words were cold, controlled, but underneath them, I could hear something else. Disappointment. You raised us better than this, he continued. You taught us to be honest, to be responsible. I am being responsible. Then act like it. That one sentence. It cut deeper than anything else, because in his eyes, I wasn't just hiding something. I was failing, as a mother, as a person, and there was nothing I could say to change that. Not yet. Not until the truth was ready to be seen. That night, my living room didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a courtroom. Daniel stood near the fireplace, his arms crossed tightly across his chest. Lisa sat on the edge of the couch, her posture straight, her eyes sharp and focused on me, like she was waiting for me to slip up. Emily stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself. Her expression torn between anger and something softer, something more fragile. And me, I stood in the middle of it all, alone. Let's just be clear, Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. We're not leaving tonight until you tell us what's going on. There was no warmth in his tone, no hesitation, just decision. I looked at him, then at Lisa, then at Emily. 3 people I had loved my entire life. 3 people who now looked at me like I was a stranger. I've already told you, I said quietly. I'm handling something important. That's not an answer, Lisa replied immediately. It's the only one I can give you right now. Why? Daniel pressed. Why can't you tell us? Because if I do, it won't just affect me. Because if I say it out loud, I'll break a promise I made. Because the truth doesn't belong only to me. But none of that could come out of my mouth. So instead, I said the one thing that made everything worse. I just can't. The silence that followed was sharp. Emily shook her head slowly, tears forming in her eyes. You keep saying that, she whispered. But you don't even realize how it sounds. I do realize, I said softly. No, you don't, she snapped, her voice suddenly breaking. It sounds like you're hiding something terrible. Her words echoed in the room. Terrible. That was what they believed now. That whatever I was doing, it wasn't just secret. It was wrong. Emily, I said gently, taking a small step toward her. She stepped back immediately. Don't, she said. Please don't try to calm me down like I'm a child. Just tell me the truth. I stopped, right there, because I knew something in that moment. If I kept pushing, if I kept refusing, I might lose her completely. I wish I could, I whispered. her face twisted in pain. "That's not good enough anymore, Mom." Daniel stepped forward, then taking control of the room again. "Okay," he said, his voice tightening. "Let's try this a different way." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean," he continued, "we're going to go through this logically." Of course he would. Daniel had always believed everything could be solved with logic. Over the past 3 months, he said, "You've withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash. You've made multiple transfers to an account we can't identify. You've been leaving the house at odd hours. You've been secretive, evasive, and I wouldn't say evasive," I interrupted gently. He ignored that. "And you refuse to explain any of it," he finished. Lisa leaned forward slightly. From an outside perspective, she said, "Careful, why? This behavior raises serious concerns." "And you refuse to explain any of it," he finished. Lisa leaned forward slightly. "From an outside perspective," she said carefully, "this behavior raises serious concerns." Concerns. There it was again. Always polite. Always controlled. But underneath accusation. What kind of concerns, I asked, even though I already knew. Daniel didn't hesitate. "That you're either being taken advantage of, or you're involved in something you shouldn't be." There it was. Finally, said out loud. I felt something heavy settle in my chest. "You really believe that?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. That hurt more than anything, because it meant yes, he did. Lisa spoke instead. "We don't want to believe it," she said. "But you're not giving us any reason not to." I let out a slow breath. This was the moment where everything could change. I could tell them, I could explain everything, end the suspicion, end the tension, end the pain. But doing that would break something else, something even more important. So I shook my head. "I'm sorry," I said. Daniel's jaw tightened. "For what?" he asked. "For not being able to give you what you want." "That's not what we want, Mom," he said, his voice rising slightly. "We want the truth." "I know. Then why won't you give it to us?" "Because the truth isn't simple. Because the truth would hurt someone you love. Because sometimes silence is the only way to protect what matters." But again, none of that came out. "I just can't," I repeated. And that was it. That was the moment everything broke. Daniel stepped back, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "This is unbelievable," he muttered. Lisa shook her head slowly. "I've never seen anything like this," she said. "Not from you." Emily didn't say anything. She just stared at me, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. "You taught us better than this," Daniel continued. "You taught us to be honest with each other, to trust each other." "I still believe in that," I said. "Then act like it," he snapped. The words hit like a slap. I flinched slightly, even though I tried not to show it. "I am acting like it," I said, quietly. "No, you're not," he replied. "You're shutting us out. I'm protecting something." The words slipped out before I could stop them. The room went still. Lisa leaned forward slightly, protecting what she asked. I froze. That was too much. I had already said too much. "I shouldn't have said that," I murmured. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Protecting what, Mom?" he repeated. "I can't." "Who are you protecting?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a second I almost told her everything. Almost. But then I remembered the promise, the reason, the cost. And I couldn't do it. Sorry," I whispered again. Emily let out a small, broken laugh. "Of course you are." She wiped her tears quickly, turning away from me. "I can't do this," she said. "I can't stand here and pretend this is normal." "It's not normal," Daniel agreed. "No," she said, "it's not. And I don't even know who she is right now. She didn't say mom, she said she." That hurt more than anything else that night, because in that moment, I wasn't her mother anymore. I was just someone she didn't recognize. Daniel looked at me one last time. "If you don't tell us the truth," he said slowly, "we're going to have to take steps to protect you." I was just someone she didn't recognize. Daniel looked at me one last time. "If you don't tell us the truth," he said slowly, "we're Gauss, the truth." He said slowly, "We're going to have to take steps to protect you." Protect me? The irony of that almost made me laugh. "You don't need to protect me," I said. "We do, if you're not protecting yourself." "I am." "Then prove it. To have to take steps to protect you." "Protect me?" The irony of that almost made me laugh. "You don't need to protect me," I said. "We do if you're not protecting yourself." "I am." "Then prove it." I shook my head. "I can't." And with that, the decision was made. Daniel nodded, once his expression hard. "Okay," he said. "Then we'll handle it our way." A chill ran down my spine, because I knew exactly what that meant, and for the first time since this all began, I realized something truly frightening. They weren't just going to question me anymore. They were going to act. After that night, something inside our family shifted, and it didn't shift back. It cracked, quietly at first, then all at once. The next morning, I woke up at my usual time, 6:30. I made my coffee just like always. 2 sugars, a splash of cream. I sat by the window just like I had for years. But nothing felt the same. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, uncomfortable. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you're being watched, even when you're alone. I reached for my phone. No missed calls, no messages. Emily always texted me in the morning. "Good morning, Mom." Every single day, except today. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Then I put the phone down and told myself it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered more than I wanted to admit. Daniel didn't call either. That was worse. Because when Daniel went quiet, it meant he wasn't done. It meant he was thinking, planning, deciding. And I knew my son well enough to understand one thing: Daniel never made emotional decisions, only calculated ones, which meant whatever he was about to do next, it wouldn't be impulsive. It would be deliberate. Around noon, I decided to leave the house. I had to, not just because of what I needed to do, but because sitting there alone with my thoughts was becoming unbearable. I grabbed my purse, checked that everything was inside, and stepped out the front door. The moment I closed it behind me, I felt it. That strange, creeping feeling again, like something wasn't right. I walked to my car, slowly scanning the street without making it obvious. And then I saw it. A car I didn't recognize, parked across the street, engine off, windows slightly tinted. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid. But as I unlocked my car door, I glanced back one more time, and I swear I saw movement inside. My stomach tightened. No, they wouldn't go that far, would they? I got into my car quickly and drove off, trying not to think about it. But the feeling stayed with me, that I wasn't just being questioned anymore. I was being watched. That evening, I got my answer. Daniel showed up again. This time, he didn't knock. He used his key. The sound of the door unlocking echoed through the house like something breaking. Daniel. I called out, stepping into the hallway. He walked in calmly, like nothing was wrong, like he still belonged there, the same way he always had. But something about the way he looked at me told me things had changed. "Mom," he said, closing the door behind him. "We need to talk." My chest tightened. "We already talked." "No," he replied. "You avoided." I folded my arms slightly, trying to steady myself. "And what makes this time different?" He walked into the living room and sat down, gesturing for me to do the same. "Didn't..." I stayed standing, watching him, waiting. "This isn't a conversation anymore," he said. That sentence alone made my heart sink. "Then what is it?" I asked quietly. "It's an intervention." The word hit me like ice water. "An intervention?" I repeated. "Yes." I let out I repeated. "Yes." I let out a small, almost disbelieving laugh. "You think I need an intervention?" "I think something is wrong," he said firmly. "And you're not willing to admit it." "There's nothing wrong with me." "Then prove it." Small, almost disbelieving laugh. "You think I need an intervention?" "I think something is wrong," he said firmly. "And you're not willing to admit it." "There's nothing wrong with me." "Then prove it." There it was again. Always the same demand. Proof. Evidence. Explanation. Things I couldn't give. "I already told you." "No, Mom," he cut in. "You told me nothing." His voice wasn't loud, but it was final, and that scared me more than anger ever could. "You're withdrawing large amounts of money," he continued. "You're hiding where it's going. You're acting secretive. You're disappearing for hours at a time." "I'm not disappearing." "Then where are you going?" I didn't answer. "Because I couldn't, and we both knew it." He exhaled slowly, like he was losing patience. "I hired someone," he said. The room went still. What I whispered. "I hired a private investigator." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. What I needed to know what was going on," he said. "Because you wouldn't tell me." My hands trembled slightly. "You had me followed. I had you protected." "No," I said, shaking my head. "No. You had me watched." "Because I'm worried about you." "You don't hire someone to follow your mother because you're worried," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "You do that because you don't trust her." The words hung in the air, heavy, irreversible. Daniel didn't deny it. That was the worst part. "I don't understand you anymore," he said quietly. I felt something inside me crack. "I'm still the same person, Daniel." "No," he replied. "You're not." Silence fell between us again. But this time, it felt different, colder, more final. "What did he find?" I asked after a moment. Daniel hesitated, just for a second. Then he said, "Enough." My heart pounded. "Enough what enough to know that you've been lying to us?" "I never said I wasn't. About something serious." I closed my eyes briefly. "Daniel, you've been going to a hospital." My eyes opened slowly. "And you've been meeting someone there." My breath caught. "And you've been giving them money." The room felt like it was spinning slightly. Because now we were getting too close. Too close to the truth. "Who is it?" he demanded. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not now. Not like this. "Mom," he said, his voice tightening. "Who are you giving that money to?" I looked at him, At my son, my little boy, who used to hold my hand crossing the street, now standing in front of me like a stranger demanding answers I wasn't ready to give. "I'm helping someone," I said finally. "That's not enough. It has to be—" "No, it doesn't." His voice rose for the first time. "Because whatever this is, it's tearing this family apart." His words hit hard, because they were true. But so was something else. Telling him the truth right now would tear something else apart too. And that I couldn't allow. "I'm sorry," I said softly. He stared at me for a long moment, and then something in his expression changed. Not anger, not frustration, something colder, more distant. "Okay," he said quietly, and somehow that scared me more than anything else he had said so far. "Okay," I repeated. He stood up slowly. "If you won't tell us the truth," he said, grabbing his keys, "then we'll find it ourselves." And with that, he walked out, leaving the door open behind him. Leaving me standing there, realizing something I hadn't fully understood until that moment. This wasn't just about suspicion anymore. It wasn't just about misunderstanding. It had become something else entirely. A line had been crossed. And now there was no easy way back. By the end of that week, I realized something I had been trying not to admit. My family wasn't just suspicious anymore. They were actively investigating me. And the worst part? They weren't even trying to hide it. It started small. Little things that on their own could have been dismissed, but together they told a very clear story. One afternoon, I stopped by the grocery store on my way home. Nothing unusual. I bought a few essentials, milk bread, some fresh vegetables. But when I got to the checkout, I noticed something strange. My card was declined. I frowned slightly and tried again. Declined. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the cashier said politely. "Do you have another form of payment?" My chest tightened. "That's not possible," I said, forcing a small smile. There must be some mistake. But deep down, I already knew. I reached into my purse and pulled out some cash instead. My hands trembled slightly as I counted it out. When I got back to my car, I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. Because this wasn't an accident. This was Daniel. When I got home, I went straight to my computer. I logged into my bank account, and there it was. A notification. Account access temporarily restricted due to unusual activity. My heart dropped. Restricted. Not frozen completely, but controlled. Limited. Managed. By someone who thought I couldn't be trusted with my own life anymore. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes. This had gone too far. But at the same time, I understood why he did it. That was the hardest part. Daniel wasn't trying to hurt me. He truly believed he was protecting me from something he didn't understand, from something I refused to explain. My phone rang. Daniel. Of course. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before answering. "Hello, Mom," he said, his tone calm but firm. "I assume you saw the account notice." I let out a slow breath. "Yes, it's temporary. That's supposed to make me feel better." "It should," he replied, "because it means we're not taking full control. Not yet. Not yet." The words sent a chill through me. "Daniel," I said carefully, "you had no right to do that." "I had every right," he countered. "You're making financial decisions that don't make sense. They make sense to me. Then explain them." I closed my eyes. There it was again. The same wall. The same demand. the same impossible answer. "I can't," I said quietly. He exhaled sharply. "Then you're forcing my hand." "What does that mean?" "It means until we understand what's going on, we're limiting your access." I repeated. "Yes, me and Lisa, of course. This wasn't just Daniel anymore. This was a decision, a joint one, calculated, discussed, agreed upon." "You talked about this," I said slowly. "Yes." "And you decided I couldn't be trusted. We decided you needed help." I let out a small, bitter laugh. "Help? You don't see it, Mom, but this is serious. I know it's serious," I said, my voice tightening. "I'm the one living it. Then let us in." "I can't." Silence. Longer this time. He was losing patience, and I could feel it. "Okay," he said finally. "Then we'll keep moving forward." My heart sank. "What are you planning you'll see?" And just like that, he hung up. That evening, I decided to go out again. I didn't have much choice. Even with the account restrictions, I still had some cash. And there were things I needed to take care of. Things I couldn't delay. Not now. Not with everything already so fragile. I grabbed my purse, checked the envelope inside, making sure it was still there, and headed out. As I stepped outside, I glanced across the street. The same car, parked in the same spot. This time, I didn't pretend I hadn't noticed. I walked straight to my car, got in, and started the engine. And as I pulled away, the car behind me did too. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. So it was true. They really were following me. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. This didn't change anything. I still had to do what I needed to do, no matter who was watching. I drove across town, taking a few extra turns just to be sure, but the car stayed behind me. Not too close, not too far. Just enough to remind me I wasn't alone. By the time I reached the hospital parking lot, my heart was racing. I parked quickly and stepped out, grabbing my purse. I didn't look back this time. I didn't need to. I already knew. They were there, watching, waiting, judging. I walked through the sliding glass doors, the familiar scent of antiseptic hitting me immediately. This place had become a second home to me over the past few months, a place where everything made sense, a place where my silence had meaning, a place where my actions mattered. Unlike at home. I headed down the hallway, my steps steady despite the storm inside me. And just as I reached the elevator, I saw someone I didn't expect. A man, standing near the entrance, watching, not like a visitor, not like family, like someone working, like someone observing. Our eyes met for a brief second, and in that moment I knew. That was him, the investigator, Daniel's investigator. He didn't approach me. He didn't say anything, but he didn't need to. His presence alone said everything. You're being watched. You're being followed. And soon, you're going to be exposed. I looked away and stepped into the elevator, pressing the button with a steady hand. But inside, everything was shaking, because I knew something now that I hadn't fully realized before. This wasn't just about suspicion anymore. It wasn't just about family conflict. It had become a race between what I was trying to protect and how fast my own children were getting closer to uncovering it. And the closer they got, the more everything I had sacrificed was at risk of falling apart. The following days became a quiet war. No shouting, no dramatic confrontations, just pressure. Constant, calculated pressure. Daniel didn't call as much anymore, but when he did, his questions were sharper. More specific, less emotional. It was as if he had switched from being my son to being an analyst studying a problem. And I was the problem. Emily, on the other hand, barely spoke to me at all. That hurt in a different way. Daniel's suspicion felt cold, but understandable. Emily's silence felt like abandonment. One evening, I tried calling her. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Hi," she said. "Just hi. No warmth. No mom." "Hi, sweetheart," I replied softly. "How are you?" "I'm okay." A pause. And one evening, I tried calling her. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Hi," she said. "Just hi. No warmth. No mom." "Hi, sweetheart," I replied softly. "How are you?" "I'm okay." A pause. "You am managing." Another pause. The distance between us filled the space. "I was thinking," I said carefully, "maybe we could have dinner together this week. Just you and me." She didn't respond right away. And in that silence, I already knew the answer. "I don't think that's a good idea right now," she said finally. My chest tightened. "Why not?" "Because I don't know what to say to you." The honesty in her voice cut deep. "You could say anything," I whispered. "No, I can't," she replied. "Because every time I ask you something important, you shut me out." I swallowed hard. "I'm not trying to shut you out. That's exactly what it feels like." I closed my eyes briefly. "I'm trying to protect something." There it was again. That word. Protect. She let out a small, frustrated breath. "From us?" she asked. "No." "Then from who?" I hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. "See," she said quietly. "You won't even answer that. I can't. Then I can't do this either." Her voice broke slightly on the last word. And before I could say anything else, she hung up. I sat there, holding the phone in my hand, staring at nothing. And for the first time since this all began, I felt fear. Not fear of being exposed, not fear of losing control, but fear of losing my daughter. Meanwhile, Daniel kept moving forward. Whatever he had learned from the investigator, it had only made him more determined. 2 days later, Lisa showed up again. This time, she didn't pretend it was a casual visit. She walked in, sat down, and placed a folder on my coffee table. "I think you should look at this," she said. I didn't move. "What is it?" "Information." "About what?" "About you." That alone made my stomach twist. I slowly walked over and sat across from her. The folder sat between us like something dangerous. Sat between us like something dangerous. "I don't think I want to see it," I said quietly. "I think you need to." Her tone wasn't aggressive. It was controlled. But underneath it, there was something else. Certainty. She believed she already knew the truth. Or at least, "I don't think I want to see it," I said quietly. "I think you need to." Her tone wasn't aggressive. It was controlled. But underneath it, there was something else. Certainty. She believed she already knew the truth. Or at least a version of it. "Go ahead," she said, sliding the folder slightly toward me. My hands felt heavier than usual as I reached for it. I opened it slowly. Inside were printed photos. My breath caught. Photos of me. At the hospital, walking through the parking lot, entering the building, standing near the elevators. And then photos of me sitting beside a hospital bed, talking to someone whose face had been blurred. But it didn't matter. I knew exactly who it was. "You've been going there regularly," Lisa said. I didn't respond. "You've been meeting the same person every time." Still silence. "And based on the financial records," she continued, "you've been paying for something. Treatments, maybe? Medical bills?" I closed the folder gently. My hands were steady, but inside, everything was shaking. "You've done your homework," I said. "Yes," she replied, "because you forced us to." I looked at her, really looked at her. Lisa had always been sharp, but now she was something else, relentless. "Who is it?" she asked. I didn't answer. "Stephanie," she said, leaning forward slightly, "this isn't just about privacy anymore. This is about trust, about safety." "I know." "Then tell me." "I can't." Her expression hardened slightly. "Is it someone from your past?" Silence. "A relative?" Silence. "Someone we don't know about?" That question lingered, dangerously close. "I'm helping someone," I said again. "That's not enough," she said. "It has to be." "No, it doesn't." Her voice was firmer now. "Because whatever this is, it's affecting all of us." I looked at her, my eyes steady. "I never asked you to get involved." "No," she said, "but you made it impossible not to." That was the truth, and we both knew it. "I'm not doing anything wrong," I said quietly. "Then prove it. There are things that don't need to be proven. In this case, they do." I shook my head slowly. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand." "I can't." That word again. Always the same. Always the end of every conversation. Lisa leaned back slightly, studying me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. And then she said something that changed everything. "What if we go to the hospital ourselves?" My heart stopped. "What if you won't tell us who it is?" she continued calmly. "Well, find out." "No," I said immediately, too quickly, too sharply. And that reaction was all she needed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "So there is something you don't want us to see." I felt my chest tighten. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" I stood up abruptly, unable to sit there any longer. "You can't go there," I said. "Why not?" "Because it's not your place. It becomes our place when you make it our problem. It's not your problem." I snapped louder than I intended. The room went still. Lisa looked at me, her expression unreadable. "Yes, it is," she said quietly. "Because you're our family." The words hit hard. Because that was the one thing I couldn't deny. And the one thing that made this so much harder. "I'm trying to do the right thing," I whispered. "Then why does it feel so wrong?" I didn't have an answer. Because, from their perspective, it did feel wrong. Suspicious, secretive, untrustworthy. But from mine, it was the only way. The only way to protect something fragile. Something important. Something that wasn't ready to be seen. Not yet. But Lisa didn't see it that way, and neither did Daniel. And now, they were getting closer. Closer than ever before. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I could stop them. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I sat in my living room, the lights off, staring at nothing, while everything ran through my mind over and over again. The photos, the hospital, the investigator, Lisa's voice, Daniel's silence, Emily's distance. It was all closing in. And for the first time since I made my decision months ago, I started to wonder if I had made the wrong one. Not because what I was doing was wrong, but because the cost was becoming unbearable. And for the first time since I made my decision months ago, I started to wonder if I had made the wrong one. Not because what I was doing was wrong, but because the cost was becoming unbearable. By morning, I already knew one thing. They weren't going to stop. Daniel had crossed a line. Hiring someone to follow me, digging into my private life, restricting my finances, that wasn't concern anymore. That was control. And people like Daniel, people who believed in control, didn't step back once they started. They escalated, which meant they were going to the hospital. Lisa had already said it, and now that they had proof, there was nothing stopping them. Unless I did something first. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. We need to meet. All of us. Tonight? No question. No softness. Just a decision already made. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Okay. That evening, I walked into Daniel's house knowing this wouldn't be a conversation. It would be a turning point. Lisa opened the door. She didn't smile. Stephanie, she said, stepping aside. Formal, distant. I stepped inside slowly. Emily was already there, sitting on the couch, her hands clasped tightly together. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Daniel stood near the dining table, waiting. Always waiting. Let's sit, he said. We did, the four of us, together, but further apart than we had ever been. Daniel placed something on the table, another folder. Thicker this time, more complete, more dangerous. I'm not going to drag this out, he said. We know enough now. My heart pounded slowly. Know what? I asked quietly. That you've been lying? Lisa said. I never said I wasn't. That you've been hiding something serious, Daniel added. Yes. That you've been going to the hospital regularly, yes. And that you're giving large amounts of money to someone there? I nodded slightly. Yes. Emily finally looked at me. Her eyes were red. You said you were protecting something, she whispered. Was that a lie too? No, I said immediately. It doesn't feel like the truth. It is. Then prove it, Daniel said. There it was again. Always the same demand. But this time, it felt different. More final. More dangerous. I looked at each of them. At my children. At the family I had spent my entire life building. And I realized something painful. They weren't going to stop. Not until they had the truth. Or something that looked like it. Okay, Daniel said when I didn't respond. Then let's make this simple. He leaned forward slightly. We're going to the hospital. My chest tightened. No, it came out too fast, too sharp, and just like before, that reaction told them everything. Why not? Lisa asked. Because you can't. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you. No, Daniel said, his voice firm. It's not. Yes, it is. Then we'll go without you. The room went silent. Completely silent. Emily looked between us, her breathing uneven. You would do that? I asked slowly. Yes, you would walk into a situation you don't understand and expose something that isn't yours to expose. If it means protecting this family. Yes. I felt something inside me break, because in his mind, that's exactly what he was doing, protecting. The same word I had been using, but for completely different reasons. You're not protecting anything, I said quietly. You're destroying it. No, he replied. You are. That landed. Hard. Because part of me knew, from their perspective, he wasn't wrong. Emily stood up suddenly. Stop, she said, her voice shaking. Just stop. We both looked at her. Tears were streaming down her face. I can't do this anymore, she said. I can't sit here and listen to both of you act like you're right while everything falls apart. Emily, I started. No, she cut in. I need to understand. She turned to me. Fully, completely. Mom, please. That word, please. It wasn't angry. It wasn't demanding. It was desperate. Just tell me, she whispered. Just tell me what's going on. I don't care about the money. I don't care about anything else. I need to know you're not doing something wrong. Her voice broke on the last word. Wrong. That's what it had come down to. Not curiosity, not suspicion. Fear. Fear that I had become someone they didn't recognize. Someone they couldn't trust. Someone they couldn't love the same way anymore. I stood there, looking at her. At my daughter. And for a moment, everything inside me screamed to tell her the truth. To end it. To fix it. To bring her back to me. But then I remembered why I had stayed silent in the first place. The promise. The person. The reason. And I knew if I told her now, I wouldn't just be breaking my silence. I would be breaking something else. Something far more fragile. I'm not doing anything wrong, I said softly. Emily closed her eyes. That's not enough anymore. I swallowed hard. I know. Then why won't you help me believe you? Because believing me would require you to know something you're not ready to face. But again, I couldn't say that. I'm sorry, I whispered. And that was it. That was the moment everything reached its breaking point. Daniel stood up. Fine, he said. Then we're done asking. He grabbed his keys. Tomorrow morning, he added, looking directly at me, we're going to that hospital. My heart dropped. Daniel, no, he said firmly. You've had your chance. Lisa stood up beside him. Emily didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the floor. And if you won't tell us the truth? Daniel continued, we'll find it ourselves. He walked toward the door. Lisa followed. Emily stayed where she was, frozen, broken. And as I stood there, watching my family walk away from me, I realized something I hadn't fully understood until that moment. The truth wasn't just at risk of being revealed. It was about to be torn open, whether I was ready or not. The next morning felt like the calm before something irreversible. I woke up earlier than usual, even before the sun had fully risen. The house was still wrapped in that familiar quiet, but this time it wasn't comforting. It felt like waiting for something to break. I didn't make coffee. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the dark, holding the edge of the kitchen table, trying to steady myself. Because I knew. Today was the day everything would change. At exactly 8:15, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Then another. Daniel, Lisa, Emily. They didn't even try to hide it. I stood slowly, my legs feeling heavier than they should have. When the door opened, Daniel walked in first, calm, composed, already in control. Lisa followed, her expression unreadable. Emily came last. She looked like she hadn't slept either. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I saw it. Not anger, not suspicion, just sadness. That hurt more than anything. "Are you ready?" Daniel asked. No greeting, no hesitation, just a question that wasn't really a question. I let out a slow breath. "No," I said, honestly. He nodded once. "That's fair," he replied. "But we're going anyway." Of course we were. There had never been a real choice. The drive to the hospital was silent. Daniel drove. Lisa sat in the front passenger seat. Emily and I sat in the back, separated by a space that felt larger than the car itself. I kept my eyes on the window, watching the familiar streets pass by. Every turn felt heavier. Every mile closer made my chest tighten, because I knew what was waiting at the end of this road. Not just the truth, but the consequences of it. Emily shifted slightly beside me. "Mom," she whispered. I turned my head just enough to look at her. Her voice was soft, fragile. "Please, if there's anything you want to tell us before we get there." Her words trailed off. Hope, that's what I heard in her voice. A small, desperate hope that I would finally speak, that I would stop this before it went too far. I swallowed hard. There it was again. That moment, that chance to fix everything, to stop the pain, to bring my family back together. All I had to do was tell the truth. But the truth wasn't just mine. And once it was out, there would be no taking it back. I shook my head slowly. "I'm sorry." Emily closed her eyes, and just like that small hope disappeared. When we arrived, Daniel parked near the entrance. The same entrance I had walked through so many times. The same place where I had tried to keep two worlds separate. And now those worlds were about to collide. Daniel turned off the engine. "Let's go." No one argued. No one spoke. We stepped out of the car together, but it didn't feel like together. It felt like being led. As we walked toward the hospital doors, I noticed him again, the investigator, standing near the entrance, watching. This time, he didn't even try to hide it. Daniel nodded slightly in his direction as we passed. Of course, they were working together now. That realization settled heavily in my chest. This wasn't just family anymore. This was an operation. Inside the hospital felt colder than usual. Or maybe that was just me. The bright lights, the quiet footsteps, the distant sounds of machines and voices. It all felt sharper, more exposed. Daniel stopped near the reception desk. "Excuse me," he said to the woman behind it. "We're looking for information about a patient my mother has been visiting." I stepped forward immediately. "No," I said. All three of them turned to look at me. "You can't do that." Daniel's expression didn't change. "Why not? Because it's private? So is everything else you've been doing. That's different." "How?" "Because it's not my secret to tell. Because you're about to walk into something you don't understand. Because you're going to hurt someone who doesn't deserve it." But again, I couldn't say any of that. "It just is," I said quietly. Daniel turned back to the receptionist. "My mother is Stephanie Reed," he said. "She's been visiting regularly. We just need to know who she's seeing." The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't release patient information." "I'm her son," he interrupted. "I understand, but without proper authorization, I have proof." Lisa said, stepping forward. She pulled out the folder. Of course she did. Photos, records, evidence, all laid out like a case. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. "I'll need to call someone," she said. Daniel nodded. "Please do." I felt my heart pounding louder with every second. This was happening. It wasn't a threat anymore. It wasn't a possibility. It was real, and I couldn't stop it. Minutes later, a man in a white coat approached us. "Dr. Harris." I recognized him immediately. He looked at me first, then at my family, and something in his expression changed. Concern. Understanding. "Mrs. Reed," he said gently, "is everything all right?" I opened my mouth to respond, but Daniel stepped in. "We'd like to know who she's been visiting," he said. Dr. Harris looked at me again, this time more carefully, as if asking a silent question. "Do you want me to tell them?" My heart felt like it was breaking, because this was it. The moment I had been trying to delay. The moment where everything would be revealed. I shook my head slightly. Barely noticeable. But he saw it. And for a second, I thought that would be enough. That he would protect the silence. That he would respect the boundary. But then Emily spoke, her voice trembling. "Please," she said, "we're her family." And that changed everything. Dr. Harris hesitated, caught between two responsibilities, confidentiality, compassion. And then he sighed softly. "Follow me," he said. My legs felt weak, but I moved anyway. Because I had no choice. We walked down the hallway together, step by step, closer and closer to the truth. And with every step I felt it, the weight of everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed, everything I had tried to protect, about to be exposed, not gently, not carefully, but all at once, and deep down I knew. Once we reached that door, nothing would ever be the same again. The hallway felt longer than it had ever been before. Each step echoed softly against the polished floor, the sound too loud in the silence between us. No one spoke. Not Daniel, not Lisa, not even Emily. And me, I could barely hear anything over the sound of my own heartbeat. Dr. Harris walked ahead, steady, composed, like he had done this 1,000 times before. But I could see it in the slight tension of his shoulders. He knew. He knew this wasn't just a normal family visit. This was something else. Something fragile. Something about to break. We stopped in front of a door. Room 312. I knew that number by heart. I had stood in front of this door so many times alone. But never like this. Never with them. Dr. Harris turned to look at me one more time. A silent question. "Are you sure I didn't answer?" Because it didn't matter anymore. The decision had already been taken out of my hands. He nodded slightly. Then he opened the door. The room was quiet, dim, filled with that familiar hum of machines. And there, on the bed, was a small figure. So small, it almost didn't seem real. A child, no older than 7 or 8, thin, fragile, connected to tubes and wires that looked far too big for such a tiny body. Emily's breath caught beside me. "Oh my God." Lisa froze. Daniel didn't move. Not at first, because this wasn't what they expected, not even close. I stepped forward slowly, my feet moving on their own. Instinct, habit, love. I walked to the bedside and gently reached out, brushing a strand of hair away from the child's forehead, soft, warm, familiar, so painfully familiar. "Hey, sweetheart," I whispered. The child didn't wake, but I didn't expect them to. They rarely did at this time of day. Behind me, silence. Heavy, confused, shifting. "Mom." Emily's voice trembled. "Who is that?" I closed my eyes for a brief second. This was it. The moment I had been trying to protect. The moment I had been delaying for months. And now there was no more delay. I turned slowly, facing them. My family. The ones I had been trying to protect from this. That I said softly is why I couldn't tell you. Daniel frowned. "That doesn't answer the question." Lisa stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the child. "You've been paying for this?" she asked. "Yes." "Why?" I looked at her, then at Emily, and finally at Daniel. Because no one else would. The words hung in the air, but they still weren't enough. Not yet. Emily took a shaky step forward. Her eyes moved from me to the child and back again. "Mom," she whispered. "Who is that?" I swallowed hard. The truth sat heavy in my chest, burning, demanding to be spoken. But once I said it, everything would change. I took a deep breath, and finally, I said it. "That's your daughter." The room went completely still. Not just quiet, still. Like time itself had stopped. Emily blinked, once, twice, as if her mind couldn't process what she had just heard. "My..." "What?" she whispered. "Your daughter," I repeated gently. Her head shook immediately. "No," she said. "No, that's not." "Yes," I said softly. "It is." Daniel looked at me sharply. "What are you talking about?" Lisa's expression shifted, shock, confusion, realization, all colliding at once. Emily took a step back, her breathing uneven. "That's not possible," she said. I don't. You do," I said. "And this time..." My voice broke, because this wasn't just a secret anymore. This was a wound, one she had buried, one I had protected, until now. "You had her," I continued softly. 8 years ago. Emily's face went pale. "No, you were young," I said. "Scared, alone. You didn't know what to do." Tears began to fall down her cheeks. "I gave her up," she whispered. I had to." "I know," I said. "I was told she was adopted, that she was safe." "She was," I said gently, "for a while." Emily's knees nearly gave out, and Lisa rushed forward to steady her. "What happened?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. I looked at him, then back at Emily, and finally, at the child lying in the bed. "She got sick," I said. The words felt heavier than anything I had ever spoken. Very sick. Lisa's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel's expression shifted again. This time, not anger, not suspicion, but something else. Something closer to fear. "And the family that adopted her," I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. "They couldn't handle it. The medical bills, the care, everything." Emily shook her head, tears streaming uncontrollably now. No, ours, streaming uncontrollably now. No. "They reached out," I said, "through an agency, through old records. It took time, but eventually." "You found out," Daniel finished quietly. I nodded. "Yes." And you didn't tell us? He asked. I couldn't. Why not? Lisa demanded. Because it wasn't my secret to tell. My voice rose for the first time. Raw. Emotional. Breaking. I turned to Emily. You had already moved on, I said softly. You had built a life. You had healed. And I wasn't going to take that away from you, not unless I had to. Emily collapsed into Lisa's arms, sobbing. I didn't know she cried. I didn't know. I know, sweetheart, I whispered. I thought she was gone. I thought she was okay. She needs you, I said. The words landed heavily. Because now the truth wasn't just exposed. It was alive, real, unavoidable. Daniel ran a hand over his face, his composure finally cracking. All this time, he muttered. All this time we thought. You thought I was doing something wrong, I said. Silence. Guilt filled the room. Thick. Unspoken. Lisa looked at me, her voice softer now. And the money. For her treatment, I said. Every dollar. And you didn't say anything. Because I promised, I whispered. I promised I would protect her and protect Emily until there was no other choice. Emily lifted her head slowly, her eyes red, her face broken. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. I stepped closer, placing my hand gently on her cheek. Because I wanted to give you the choice, I said. What choice? To know her or not? The room fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't filled with suspicion. It was filled with something else, something heavier, something deeper, truth. And now there was no hiding from it anymore. The silence after the truth came out wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. Emily stood there frozen, her entire world collapsing in front of her. My daughter, she whispered again, like saying it out loud might somehow make it less real. But it didn't. Nothing about this was less real anymore. Daniel turned away, pacing slowly across the room, running his hand through his hair, like he was trying to process something that didn't fit into his carefully ordered way of thinking. Lisa stayed beside Emily, her hand still resting on her arm, but her eyes were now fixed on the child in the bed. On the little girl, on the truth. How long? Daniel finally asked, his voice low strained. How long have you known? I looked at him. A few months. And you didn't tell us, he asked again, but this time there was no anger, just disbelief. I couldn't. You keep saying that, Lisa said quietly. But now we see what you were hiding, and it still doesn't make sense why you didn't trust us. I swallowed. It wasn't about trust. Then what was it about? Daniel asked. I looked at Emily. Because the answer had always been about her. Her choice. I said, softly. Emily shook her head, tears falling faster now. I didn't have a choice, she said. I gave her up. I thought that was the end of it. It was never the end, I said gently. Not for you. Not for her. Emily let out a broken sob and turned away, pressing her hands to her face. I was 30 years old, she whispered. I wasn't a teenager. I wasn't reckless. I couldn't do it. I wasn't ready. I know, I said. I thought I was doing the right thing. You were, I said firmly. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. Then why does it feel so wrong now? Because life doesn't always stay in the neat boxes we try to put it in. Because the past doesn't disappear just because we want it to. Because love finds its way back. But again, I didn't say all that. Instead, I stepped closer and took her hand. "Because now you know," I said softly. She looked at the child again, at her daughter, and something in her expression changed. Not just grief, not just shock, something deeper, something instinctive. Recognition. "What's her name?" Emily asked quietly. I felt my throat tighten. "Her name is Lily." The name seemed to settle into the room. "Lily." Emily took a shaky step forward, her eyes never leaving the bed. She's so small," she whispered. "She's been through a lot," I said. "What does she have?" Daniel asked. I looked at him, then at Dr. Harris, who had been standing quietly near the door this whole time. He stepped forward. "Lily has a rare autoimmune condition," he explained. "Her body is essentially attacking itself. It's been difficult to manage." "And the treatment?" Lisa asked. "Expensive," he said honestly. "Very expensive." Silence again. But this time it wasn't confusion. It was understanding. Pieces were finally starting to fit together. The money, the secrecy, the hospital visits, everything. "You've been paying for all of this?" Daniel asked slowly. "Yes." "With your savings?" "Yes." "All of it." I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." Daniel exhaled slowly, shaking his head. "Oh my God!" Lisa looked at me, her expression completely different now. Softer. Guilty. "You did all of this alone. I didn't want to involve anyone." "Why not?" she asked. "Because it wasn't their burden to carry." Daniel let out a bitter breath. "We're your family. That makes it our burden whether you like it or not." "I know that now," I said quietly. Emily moved closer to the bed, her steps slow, uncertain, like she was approaching something sacred or fragile, or both. She reached out hesitantly, then stopped. Afraid. What if she whispered? What if she doesn't know me? My heart broke a little at that. "She doesn't," I said gently. "Not yet." Emily nodded slowly. "And what if she doesn't want to?" I stepped closer to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She's a child," I said softly. "What she wants is love, stability, safety." Emily swallowed hard. "And I gave that up." "No," I said firmly. "You made the best decision you could at the time." "But you stayed," she said, looking at me. "You found her. You helped her. You became everything I couldn't be." Her words hit me harder than anything else that day. "I didn't replace you," I said gently. "But you stepped in, because she needed someone, and now she needs me," Emily whispered. "Yes." That word hung in the air, heavy, unavoidable. Emily looked back at Lily, at her daughter, and slowly, carefully she reached out again. This time, her hand didn't stop. It gently touched Lily's small fingers. And in that moment, everything shifted. Because this wasn't just a secret anymore. This was a connection, a bond, a beginning. Daniel watched quietly, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to me. "Why didn't you trust us with this?" he asked. I looked at him. Really looked at him. "My son," I said softly, "you didn't even trust me with my own life." The words landed hard, because they were true. His eyes dropped slightly. "I thought you were in trouble," he said. "I was," I replied, "just not in the way you imagined." Lisa stepped closer. "We thought you were being taken advantage of." "I was choosing to give," I said. "That's different." Yes, I said. It is. Daniel let out a long breath. And the investigator, I know. I'm sorry. Those words were quiet, but they mattered because this was the first time he wasn't trying to control the situation. He was acknowledging it. Emily didn't turn around. She stayed there holding Lily's hand, crying quietly. But something about those tears felt different now. Not just pain, but release, understanding, connection. And as I stood there watching my family finally see the truth, I realized something. The secret I had been protecting for so long had done its job. It had protected Lily. It had protected Emily. And now, it was finally time for it to let go. Everything changed after that moment. Not slowly, not gently, all at once, like a truth that had been held underwater for too long, finally breaking the surface, forcing everyone to see it breathe, it face it. Emily didn't leave Lily's side, not for a second. Even when Dr. Harris began explaining the treatment plans, the risks, the costs, Emily barely seemed to hear him. Her hand stayed wrapped around Lily's small fingers, tight, protective, almost instinctive, like something buried deep inside her had woken up. I should have been here, she whispered at one point, her voice barely audible. I stepped closer. You couldn't have known, I said, gently. But you did. Her words were not accusatory, just painful. I found out, I corrected softly. And when I did, I made a choice. Emily looked at me, a long, searching look. And you chose her, she said. Yes, and you didn't choose us. That hurt. But I didn't look away. I chose both, I said quietly, in the only way I knew how. Daniel let out a slow breath behind us. You chose to lie, he said. I turned to him. Yes, I said. I did. Lisa crossed her arms, her voice softer now, but still firm. You let us believe the worst. I know. You let us think you were being scammed. Or worse. I know. Why, she asked again. And this time I didn't hesitate. Because if I told you, you would have done exactly what you did today. I know. You let us think you were being scammed. Or worse. I know. Why, she asked again. And this time I didn't hesitate. Because if I told you, you would have done exactly what you did today. They all went silent. Daniel frowned. What do you mean, you would have come here? I said. Demanding answers. Pushing for the truth? And you wouldn't have stopped until you got it. And that's wrong, he asked. In this case, yes. Lisa shook her head. She's family. She's also vulnerable, I replied. And so is Emily. Emily flinched slightly at her name. I softened my tone. I wasn't just protecting Lily, I said. I was protecting you. Emily's eyes filled with tears again, from what she asked, from being forced to face something you weren't ready for. Emily let out a broken breath. I'm not ready now, I know. Then why does it feel like I don't have a choice? Because sometimes life doesn't wait until we're ready. Because love doesn't ask permission. Because the past has a way of returning when we least expect it. But instead, I said, because now it's real. Daniel stepped closer, his voice lower now. And the money, I looked at him. I gave everything I had, I said simply. His jaw tightened. Everything. Yes. You didn't think to tell us, to ask for help? No. Why not? Because I didn't want it to become a discussion. Because I didn't want conditions. Because I didn't want anyone to say no. But more than that, because I believed this was my responsibility. I didn't want her care to depend on anyone else's approval. I said. Lisa's expression shifted again. You would have lost everything. I was prepared for that. Daniel stared at me. Even your house. Yes. Your savings. Yes, your security. I nodded. All of it. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Because now, they weren't just seeing the truth. They were understanding the cost. You were willing to lose everything, Emily whispered. For her, I said. Emily looked down at Lily again, at her daughter, and something in her face changed again. Not just pain, not just guilt. Something deeper, something stronger. Love. Does she know? Emily asked suddenly. Dr. Harris stepped forward gently. She knows she was adopted, he said, but she doesn't know the full story. Emily nodded slowly. And her parents? They've stepped back, he said carefully. They're still legally responsible, but they're not very present. Emily closed her eyes. Tears slipped down again. She was alone, she whispered. No, I said immediately. She wasn't. Emily looked at me. You were here. Yes, but I wasn't. I stepped closer, placing my hand over hers. You are now. That was all that mattered. Not the past, not the mistakes, not the choices made out of fear. Now, this moment, this connection, this chance. Daniel let out a slow breath, rubbing his temples. I don't even know what to say, he admitted. That makes two of us, Lisa added quietly. I looked at them both, and for the first time since all of this began, I saw it. Not suspicion, not judgment, but something else. Respect, mixed with guilt. I'm sorry, Daniel said finally. The words were simple, but they carried weight. I thought you were in trouble, he continued. I thought you were making bad decisions. I thought I needed to step in. I know, I said. But I was wrong. I shook my head. But I was wrong. I shook my head gently. You weren't wrong to be concerned. I was wrong about you. That mattered more. Lisa stepped closer as well. I'm sorry too, she said. I pushed. I assumed the worst. You were trying to protect your family, I replied. But you were protecting someone too, she said. We just didn't see it. Emily squeezed Lily's hand gently. She protected all of us, she whispered. I felt my throat tighten, because that was the truth. I want to help, Emily said suddenly. All of us looked at her. Her voice was still fragile, but there was something new in it. Determination. I don't know how she continued. I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to be here. Dr. Harris nodded. We can guide you, he said. Emily looked at me. Will you help me? I smiled, softly, tears in my eyes. Always. Daniel stepped forward. Well, I'll help, he said. Lisa nodded. Whatever it takes. And just like that, the burden I had carried alone for months was no longer mine alone. It was shared, not forced, not taken, given. Freely, willingly, because now they understood. This wasn't a secret born from shame. It was a sacrifice born from love. And now, it belonged to all of us. The room didn't feel the same anymore. Not after the truth. Not after everything that had been hidden was finally out in the open. The tension was still there, but it had changed. It wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't filled with accusation. It was heavy, quiet, full of things none of us quite knew how to say yet. Emily didn't let go of Lily's hand, even when Dr. Harris left the room, even when Daniel stepped outside to take a call, even when Lisa quietly moved to sit in the corner, giving her space. She stayed there, still, focused, present, like she was trying to make up for 8 years in a single moment. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. Her voice was so soft, I almost didn't hear it. I stepped closer. "You don't have to know everything right now," I said gently. "But I should know something." "You know enough." She shook her head slightly. "I don't feel like I do. That's normal." Emily looked at me, her eyes searching mine again. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple," I said. "It's just real." She let out a slow breath. "I thought I had moved on." "I know. I thought that part of my life was over." "I know. But now—" She glanced at Lily, her voice breaking now. "She's here." "Yes, and she needs me." "Yes." Emily closed her eyes, tears slipping down again. "And I don't know if I'm strong enough." That was the moment. The real moment. Not the reveal, not the shock. This, the fear that came after. The doubt, the weight of responsibility. I placed my hand gently over hers. "You don't have to be strong all at once," I said softly. She looked at me, then back at Lily. "But you were," she said. "You did all of this by yourself." I shook my head. "I wasn't strong," I said quietly. "I was just willing to lose everything." "Yes." Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. "Why?" I looked at Lily, at the small rise and fall of her chest, at the fragile life I had been fighting to protect. "Because she didn't have anyone else," I said, "and that was enough." "Yes." Emily stared at me for a long moment, and then something in her expression softened. Not completely, not all at once, but enough. Daniel came back into the room quietly. He didn't speak right away. He just stood there watching Emily, watching Lily, watching me. And for the first time since all of this began, he looked unsure, not in control, not confident, just unsure. "I've been thinking," he said finally. We all turned to him. "I handled this wrong." The words came out slowly, carefully, like he wasn't used to saying them. Lisa looked at him surprised. "So did I," she added quietly. "I didn't say anything. I just listened, because this wasn't about me defending myself anymore. This was about them facing what they had done." "I thought I was protecting you," Daniel continued, looking at me. "I know, but I wasn't," he said. "I was controlling you." The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. "I didn't trust you," he added. That was the part that mattered most. I nodded slowly. I felt that. His jaw tightened slightly. "I shouldn't have done that." "No," I said gently. "You shouldn't have." Lisa shifted in her seat. "We judged you," she admitted. "We assumed the worst." "You had reasons to be concerned," I said. "That doesn't justify what we did." Silence, because it didn't. and we all knew it. Emily stood up slowly, carefully, like she didn't want to break the moment. "I need some air," she said. Lisa moved to follow her, but Emily shook her head. "I just need a minute." She walked out quietly, leaving the rest of us behind. Daniel sat down in the chair beside the bed, closer than he had been before. He looked at Lily. Really looked at her. "She looks like you," he said after a moment. I smiled faintly. "She looks like Emily?" He nodded slowly. "Can see that now." Another pause. "And she's been here this whole time." "Yes, and we had no idea." "No!" Daniel leaned back slightly, running a hand over his face. "I feel like I've been living in the wrong story." I understood that feeling. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "we don't see the full picture until we're forced to." He let out a small, tired breath. "I pushed you," he said. "I accused you. I took control of your finances. Hired someone to follow you. I know. And you were saving her." "Yes." He shook his head slowly. "I don't know how to make that right." I looked at him. "You don't fix it all at once," I said. "Then how?" "You start by understanding, I know. And you were saving her." "Yes." He shook his head slowly. "I don't know how to make that right." I looked at him. "You don't fix it all at once," I said. "Then how you start by understanding." He nodded. "And then you show up," I said. "For her. For all of us." Lisa stepped closer to the bed. She looked down at Lily with a different expression now. Gentler. More careful. "She's beautiful," she said softly. "She is," I replied. Lisa hesitated for a moment, then asked quietly, "Does she know she's not alone anymore?" I smiled slightly. "Not yet." Lisa nodded. "Then we should make sure she does." Emily came back a few minutes later. Her eyes were still red, but something about her felt different, stronger, more grounded. "I'm not running away," she said. No one had to ask what she meant. "I'm staying," she added. My heart tightened. "Okay," I said softly. "I don't know what comes next," she continued. "I don't know how to be what she needs." "You'll learn," I said. "But I'm not leaving her again." The words were firm, certain, final, and in that moment, I knew. This was the beginning of something new. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And as I stood there, watching my family slowly come back together, I realized something important. The truth hadn't destroyed us. It had broken us, yes, but it had also given us a chance to rebuild. Stronger, more honest, more connected. And maybe that was the real sacrifice all along. The days that followed didn't feel like real life at first. They felt like something fragile, something that could fall apart if we moved too fast, spoke too loudly, or expected too much too soon. But slowly, things began to settle. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to breathe again. Emily started coming to the hospital every day. At first, she was quiet, careful, almost afraid to do anything wrong. She would sit beside Lily's bed for hours sometimes, just watching her breathe, sometimes holding her hand like she was afraid it might disappear if she let go. She asked questions, a lot of them, about Lily's condition, her treatment, her routines, what she liked, what she didn't like, what made her smile, what scared her, And every time she asked something, I saw it, that shift inside her. From someone overwhelmed to someone trying to become what she needed to be. One afternoon, Lily woke up while Emily was there alone. I wasn't in the room at that moment, but Emile Y told me later. She opened her eyes from someone overwhelmed to someone trying to become what she needed to be. One afternoon, Lily woke up while Emily was there alone. I wasn't in the room at that moment, but Emily told me later. She opened her eyes, Emily said softly, sitting beside me in the waiting area. And she looked at me like she didn't know who I was. That's normal, I said gently. I know, she replied, but it still hurt. I reached over and squeezed her hand. What did you do? I asked. Emily smiled faintly, though her eyes were still heavy with emotion. I told her my name. I felt my chest tighten. And she just stared at me for a second, Emily said. Then she asked if I was a nurse. I couldn't help but smile softly. And what did you say? Emily looked down at her hands. I didn't know what to say, she admitted. So I just told her I was someone who cared about her. That was enough. For now. And we both knew it. Daniel and Lisa came less often, but when they did, their presence felt different too. Daniel wasn't in control anymore. He didn't ask Quinn control anymore. He didn't ask questions like an investigator. He asked like a son. Like someone trying to understand, not dominate. One evening, he stood beside me in the hallway. I've been thinking about what you said, he admitted. Which part, Estgens? Like an investigator. He asked like a son. Like someone trying to understand, not dominate. One evening, he stood beside me in the hallway. I've been thinking about what you said, he admitted. Which part? About control. I nodded slightly. And you were right, he said. I crossed a line. I looked at him. You were scared, I said. That doesn't excuse it. No, I agreed, but it explains it. Daniel exhaled slowly. I thought I knew what was best, he said. I thought if I just stepped in, took control, fixed things, everything would be okay. That's how you've always handled things, I said. Yes, he replied, but this time I wasn't fixing anything. No, I said softly. You were breaking trust. He nodded. And you still didn't give up on me. That caught me off guard. I never would, I said. Daniel looked down for a moment. I didn't deserve that. You're my son, I replied simply. You don't have to deserve it. That was the thing about love. It didn't wait for perfection. It didn't require worthiness. It just stayed. Lisa approached things differently. She didn't say much at first, but she started helping in quiet ways, bringing food, organizing schedules, talking to hospital staff, making sure Emily had what she needed. One afternoon, she sat beside me while Emily was inside with Lily. I misjudged you, she said suddenly. I looked at her. We all did, I replied. No, she said. I did it differently. How I didn't just suspect, she said. I built a case. I couldn't argue with that. I gathered evidence, she continued. I convinced Daniel. I pushed things forward. You were trying to protect your family. I was trying to prove I was right. That honesty mattered. I studied her for a moment. And now, I asked. Lisa looked through the glass window into Lily's room. Now I realize being right isn't the same as doing what's right. I nodded slowly. That's a hard lesson. Yes, she said. But I needed to learn it. And then, there was me. For the first time in months, I wasn't carrying everything alone. The weight I had been holding, the fear, the responsibility. It was still there, but it was shared now. And that made all the difference. I didn't have to hide anymore. I didn't have to lie. I didn't have to pretend everything was fine. Because now they saw it. They understood. And they stayed. One evening, we all sat together in Lily's room. Quiet, calm, different from before. Lily was asleep, her breathing steady. Emily sat beside her, gently brushing her hair back. Daniel stood near the window. Lisa leaned against the wall. And me, I stood in the middle of it all, watching, taking it in. "This feels strange," Emily said softly. "How?" Daniel asked. "Like everything is broken," she said, "but somehow it's also coming back together." I smiled slightly. "That's exactly what it is." Lisa nodded. "We lost trust," she said, "but we didn't lose each other." Daniel looked at me. "Not completely," he added. I met his gaze. "No," I said. "Not completely." Emily squeezed Lily's hand gently. "I don't know what happens next," she admitted. "You don't have to," I said. "We'll figure it out," Daniel added. "Together," Lisa said. Emily looked at all of us, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, she smiled. Small, fragile, but real. And in that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about healing Lily. It was about healing us, as a family, as people, as individuals who had made mistakes, but were willing to face them. And maybe that was what truly mattered. Not that everything was perfect, but that we chose to stay, to face the truth, to rebuild together. 3 months later, life didn't look the way it used to. And strangely, that was a good thing. Lily was stronger, not fully healed, not completely out of danger, but stronger. Her treatments were working slowly, carefully, like everything else in our lives now. There were still difficult days. Days when she was too tired to speak. Days when Emily sat beside her bed, holding her hand and whispering stories just to fill the silence. Days when I saw that same fear in Emily's eyes, the fear of losing something she had just found. But there were also new moments. Moments we never thought we'd have. Lily laughing softly at something Daniel said. Lisa helping her with a puzzle, patiently guiding her through each piece. Emily reading to her, her voice trembling at first, then growing steadier with every word. And me watching. Always watching. Not from a distance anymore, but from within. Part of it. Finally. Emily had changed the most. Not overnight, not perfectly, but deeply. She moved slower now, listened more, felt everything more honestly. There were nights she sat with me in the kitchen long after everyone else had gone home. "I keep thinking about that day," she said once, staring into her cup of tea. "The day I gave her up." I didn't interrupt. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she continued. "I thought I was protecting her from a life I couldn't give her." "You were," I said gently. "But I never imagined," she paused, her voice tightening, "that she would come back into my life like this." "Life doesn't always ask for permission," I said. Emily let out a soft, tired laugh. "No, it doesn't." She looked at me then. "Do you regret it?" "What not telling us?" she clarified. I thought about it for a moment, about the months of tension, the distance, the pain, the accusations, and then about Lily, about Emily holding her hand, about our families standing together instead of falling apart. "No," I said softly. I regret the hurt, but not the choice. Emily nodded slowly. I think I understand that now. That meant everything. Daniel had changed too, in quieter ways. He didn't try to control everything anymore, didn't jump to conclusions, didn't assume he knew the full story. One afternoon, he sat beside me on the hospital bench. I've been thinking about something he said. What is it? All those years he said you took care of everything. You held this family together. I smiled faintly. That's what mothers do. And when things started to look wrong, he continued. I didn't trust that you still knew what you were doing. I looked at him. That's a hard thing to admit. Yes, he said, but it's true. He paused. I thought I had outgrown needing you. I didn't respond right away. And then this happened, he said, glancing toward Lily's room. And I realized I still have a lot to learn from you. My chest tightened slightly. You don't outgrow family, I said. No, he agreed. You just forget how much it matters sometimes. Lisa, in her own way, became the quiet glue. She didn't talk about feelings as much, but she showed up, every time, with food, with plans, with structure. She organized Lily's treatment schedule, helped Emily manage appointments, even found ways to reduce some of the medical costs. One day, she handed me a folder. What's this? I asked. Financial assistance programs, she said, and a fundraiser Daniel and I are setting up. I looked at her surprised. You don't have to do that. I know, she replied. But I want to. That was the difference now. Everything we did was a choice. And Lily? Lily slowly began to understand. Not everything, not all at once, but enough. One afternoon, she looked up at Emily and asked, Are you my mom? The room went completely still. Emily froze. I saw the fear in her eyes, the hesitation, the weight of that question. But then, she did something I hadn't expected. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone else. She looked at Lily, and she answered. I'm your mom? She said softly. Lily studied her for a moment, then asked, Where were you? Emily's breath caught, but she didn't look away. I was trying to figure out how to be ready for you, she said. Lily seemed to think about that. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. And just like that, she accepted it. Not with anger, not with questions, but with the simple openness of a child. And Emily. Emily broke down in tears, holding her daughter for the first time. Not as a stranger, but as a mother. That night, I sat alone in my living room again. The same chair, the same window, the same quiet, but everything felt different. Not empty, not heavy, just still, peaceful. For the first time in a long time, I thought about everything that had happened, the suspicion, the accusations, the distance, the pain, and then the truth, the reveal, the healing, and I realized something simple but powerful. Not all silence hides something bad. Sometimes it protects something sacred. And sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the ones who will stand beside you when the truth finally comes out. Not because they were right, but because love gives them the chance to be better. If you've ever been misunderstood, if you've ever had to carry something alone because it wasn't yours to share, I want you to remember this. Not everyone will understand your silence. Not everyone will trust your choices. But that doesn't make your love any less real. Sometimes, the greatest acts of love are the ones no one sees until the moment they matter most. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been judged for something people didn't understand? Would you have told the truth earlier or protected it like I did? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched you in any way, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because sometimes stories like this remind us what really matters: family, sacrifice, and the quiet strength of love. What this story truly reminds us is that not all silence is betrayal, and not all secrets are meant to deceive. Sometimes silence is the only way love can survive, quiet, unseen, and deeply sacrificial. In a world where we are quick to question, quick to judge, and quick to demand explanations, we often forget that not every truth belongs to us in the moment we want it. Stephanie didn't hide because she was ashamed. She hid because she understood something many of us struggle to accept: that love is not always loud, and it is not always understood. Real love is often inconvenient. It asks for sacrifice without recognition. It demands patience when everything around you is falling apart. And sometimes it requires you to be misunderstood by the very people you are trying to protect. But this story is not just about sacrifice, it's also about humility. Daniel thought control meant protection. Lisa thought evidence meant truth. Emily thought her past was buried and finished. Yet all of them had to face a difficult reality. Being wrong does not make you a bad person, but refusing to see the truth when it's in front of you can break the people you love. What saved this family wasn't perfection. It was their willingness to change, to admit fault, to stay even after everything hurt. And maybe that's the most powerful lesson of all. Families don't stay strong because they never break. They stay strong because they choose to come back together again and again, no matter how painful the truth may be. So let me ask you, have you ever been misunderstood when your intentions were pure? Have you ever had to carry something heavy in silence because you knew others weren't ready for the truth? Share your story in the comments. I'd really love to hear it. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe, because sometimes the stories we need most are the ones that remind us we're not alone.